Yeah, no, first, thank you very much, Per, for helping us, for organizing with us this panel discussion, which I think will be were very interesting. Just maybe to give some kind of first feedback that I got during the day, and I guess we can discuss that a bit between us. I mean, for me, it looks like the situation today was very different from last year. I think today we discuss a lot about more, how to get the funding available to the studio and into the game. As last year we were talking a lot about where is the money, and today I think it was a bit different. Even though I still think that there's still a gap, there's still gaps of money, but definitely there is more money available, more public money, and I think we saw a lot of interest from different countries and governments to increase that, and you will see, I think, in the next in 2022 a lot of new initiatives, I think, on public funding. We see also that there are more and more private funders who understand the game sector, who would like to invest. We even had people today who said, I'm looking for projects. So I think it's definitely a different situation, but still I think the problem is the access to this funding. The money is there, but the access, the instrument to access these different types of money, whether it's through the private fund, public money, or banks. We've been talking quite a lot about banking during the sessions, because it's definitely a point that I think is still of a pain. But the instruments are still, I think, difficult to. They are not there. They are not really structured. So the money is there, the studios are there, the developers are there, but in order to access this money, I still think there are some questions. So I think that was my first feedback. I don't know what you think.
Well, I think it's an interesting observation, because what I hear, from the trend of the people with the money, they have kind of all said that it's not enough to provide the money. We also have to bring it to those who we want to invest in. And that's why I thought it was really interesting to hear from the German Games Fund that in addition to the fund itself, you're also doing an activity strategy with a number of different parts which are not necessarily specific to the funding. So I thought that was really encouraging. And now that we have the head of the unit, Stefan Sass, with us on Zoom, maybe would you like to comment on that? Do you agree, or am I completely misunderstanding everything?
No, no, Per, I think you're perfectly right. The idea behind the strategy was actually the conclusion that games funding cannot be the only answer in order to promote the games industry. It's what we consider a holistic approach is we deal with certain aspects that can promote the industry besides the federal funding. It's like, for example, encouraging innovation, like the technology transfer. And this is actually, I think, an example of, we talked about today about the professionalization of the industry that was also tackled, that was one of the issues. And I think when you consider the games industry, you can see that there is a strong potential for a technology transfer out from the game industry into other sectors of the industry, of the technology industry. And this potential is not fully utilized yet. So there could be an additional revenue stream for companies. That's what I consider a professionalization of the industry. But also with the professionalization of the industry, there's another aspect which was touched upon briefly today. That's to create the awareness inside, especially small companies, that they are running a business. It's if you deal with game developers, they are primarily idealistic. They are sometimes, in some cases, they are making their hobby and their private interest into, they're developing it into a business. But they have to be aware that this is definitely a business, and that there may be a next step, there may be a step for growth and a concept behind that. And that's what we also touch upon in the game strategy, to professionalize the industry, to make them aware, especially the small companies, that there may be a path of growth, but you need to have actually a concept behind that.
That's really interesting. May I share some experience of the technology transfer? I think it's a very intriguing idea, and I've seen that happen. I've also seen that not happen. And in my experience, it's making games for the audience. That's a business to consumer logic. But technology transfer typically is a business to business logic, and that's a big step for the games companies. And the successful cases I've seen is where they have taken the technology and made it a separate company with a different business plan and a different management, and sometimes also different owners. So in my experience, that's the model that works, rather than trying to have one company with two different types of offers. So that might be maybe a helpful advice on the way.
Yes. If I may add another lesson I learned today, I think we talked, you guys talked about the financing aspect right now and before my comment. And what I found quite interesting is actually the concept of having a toolbox of different financing tools. For example, our subsidy system in Germany, that's covering primarily, that's focused on a certain kind of support for the industry. But you may need a tax break system in order to attract more bigger companies. Benedikt Gründel mentioned it that the system should be easy, and therefore I think we need to consider that the systems complement each other. Also with the private investment, with venture capital, this is an entire toolbox for different development stages of games, and also for different development stages of a company.
Yes, no, definitely. I think it was discussed a bit today. We saw different parts of this toolbox that you describe. But for the moment, I don't see so much links in between these different parts. That's a little bit the problem. And I think for studio, I guess it's very difficult to go from one funding to another funding and see how they work together, how they are complementary, and how they can use, for example, again, banks to cash flow some part of these needs. And as you say, R&D as well, funding that is not dedicated to content, but is also part of the development. So again, yes, there's more money, definitely. And I think, of course, the pandemic, and it showed that, game is a very robust sector, I would say. But at the same time, this different continuity of different types of funding and how they work together is still very difficult to put in place, and people don't really talk to each other. That's also, for us, I think it was very interesting to do this year, these different roundtables. We decided last year, for those who were there at the debate, we decided to really segment by the type of funding, so public funding alone together, private funding, banks, etc. And we had some discussion with all these people, and we understood that they don't talk to each other, they don't know each other. That banks don't talk to private investors, and private investors don't talk to public bodies. And that because of that, of course, there are gaps in between, because they don't know where they go and what is the next step. And that's why today we wanted to mix that, and that all the panels were with different types of people to have discussion. And I thought the discussion were more richer, basically, because of that, because people could discuss these different points together.
Yes, and it's also great that we had a bank. I think we had a bank on every panel almost, so that really speaks to your point.
And I can tell you it was very difficult to find banks, just for your information. I mean, I think you saw that during the discussion today. I mean, many banks are very intrigued with game, and they are thinking, yes, we should go there. But to actually find banks who are really interested, who want to do it in practical, to do it, it's very difficult. And that's why we wanted to have Société Générale as a first keynote as well, because we thought, okay, it was like a symbol. I think nobody expected that, to have, like a private bank having such a strong strategy on gaming, on esport, etc., because it's for them it's innovation, it's growth driver, and it's very important. And then yes, we had other banks always, which was important for us, because of course the banks are there to manage and to simplify a little bit between the different funds, because it's always done through milestones, project funding, company fundings through shares, etc. But you need a bank instrument to simplify, to liquefy a little bit the funding between the things. So that was important, but we're still, I think we're still not there with the banks. We still need a little bit of work, I think, on that.
Dr. Zas, one other point that I think was strong in the panels today was the access to business intelligence, access to data. Yeah. Several were mentioning that in different points of view, both from the developer point of view and the investor point of view. Do you, would that be part of your strategy to also make available something like that, business intelligence?
We haven't touched upon this topic in the strategy, we have done a stakeholder process in order to develop the strategy. So we asked the industry and other participants close to the industry, what do we need to tackle in the games strategy? What are our next strategic goals in order to foster the German games industry market? And this never came up, actually. That was never addressed. So for me, this was quite an interesting facet of today's meeting. Yeah.
Okay, that's very interesting. Yes. I'm glad that we could add something then to yeah. the topics. That's already.
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's definitely a lack of data. I mean, that came very, very strongly out from especially the private investment roundtables, where you know they were interested to get more data, obviously, to be able to invest in a better way. So I think it's important, and also coming from the studios as well. In our accelerator at Spielfabrik, we have a lot of young companies that we are helping, and the problem they have most of the time is to access data about comparables, about projects that have been already sold and distributed and published with a similar angle, similar size, etc. And access to data is very, very difficult. Very tough. We were discussing about that yesterday as well.
Yes, it's an evergreen topic maybe. I have a question for you, Thierry. Yeah. You showed a map of Europe with green and white spaces depending on the access to public funding. Does that correspond to success? Can you see the impact of the public funding of those regions or countries?
I think the colors we put were not linked to success, but were more linked to the impact that it could have on the ecosystem. So the dark green was, the quite system that quite established and have a strong impact, and then a lot of other paler green that have been doing something, but I think the impact is maybe still limited, either because it's a limit of money that they've got, or because the ecosystem is also a bit weak still. And then we have a bunch of countries that are really starting now to have dedicated funding for game, where it's difficult to know the impact and the success of that. But I mean, what was interesting today about the public funding is that I think it was said at all levels that public funding is very important, and it's part of the the financing puzzle. You know, and even private investors like Bertrand, for example, from Gamesea, I thought it was very interesting to see that he said, we are looking for that because obviously it's something that we can leverage. So I think public money is very important. It's increasing more and more. And we see through this research that we've done with Creative Europe Desk, we see that a lot of governments are looking into that, are thinking of upgrading that and changing that. So yeah, it's linked to that as well.
Yeah, I think that was a really strong takeaway, and I also think that we got a lot of success stories and great cases for the power of the German Games Fund. So I hope that you have some good material, some good content for your evaluation PowerPoints or however you present your reports to to the people that made the ultimate decisions.
Right. Yeah. You know what I found very interesting also, if I may add, is the exchange this entire project made possible, and the importance of creating a network in order to exchange ideas and lessons learned. And I think we need to in the future we need to focus more on fostering and establishing the network between the countries in order to exchange the lessons learned. Because I think what I understand is that most countries have some unique kind of structure, and we might learn from that, and it's like our games fund may be interesting for other countries. So it's an exchange of ideas and exchange of concepts, and I would like to see that. Or I would like to encourage you to look further into this network aspect.
Yes, I think it's very important. As I say, I think people don't talk to each other at the moment. I mean,
Right.
even as well inside the country. I mean, we see a lot of development in the regions as well. Of course, in Germany, but in Spain, for example, it's very important, this regional effect, or in Italy, for example, as well. So the regions are playing also a very strong role, and they are also very close to the studio, maybe closer, at a national level. So this idea of exchange between the region, the countries is very important. But as I say, I would add to that really an exchange between the funds, really to compare best practice, because when you talk to banks, private funds, and public funds, at the end they have the same customers,
Right.
but they don't talk to each other. They don't talk between themselves. So they talk just on bilateral with the studio. And I think we should try to have some more discussion, but together, so to understand a little bit who is doing what. And there is interest from both sides. I mean, we saw that in the roundtable. People said from the public side, yes, we want to understand more how private investors are investing and what are the criteria, what are they looking for. And from the private investment, of course, they want to understand how the public money will be developed and given, basically, so that they can adjust as well their strategy. And that doesn't happen today. So I think it's really, really important part. Okay?
Yeah. Well, I've granted everybody a Christmas wish.
I wanted to ask you that. That's not good.
Well, do you have a Christmas wish?
Well, yeah, of course.
Yeah?
Like everybody. No, I think, it would be good if this Corona thing stops. I mean, it's a bit, it's not very original, but I think, it was not interesting, but it was something a bit different, but now it's too long. And I think we should, we have to find a way to stop that and come back to normal life and being able to travel, because it's obviously a problem. I've been traveling quite a lot in the last 2 months, and it's very nice to see people in Rio. So I should go back. So, Per and Stefan, what are your Christmas wishes as well?
All right.
Well, my Christmas wish is actually 2 wishes. I'm greedy. Well, the first one I already talked about it is to have in Germany available a funding toolbox for every development phase of a company and of a game. And the second wish would be more collaboration on the European level in order to prevail in a highly competitive international market, especially when you consider certain investments of certain states, which could be a concern.
Per.
Yeah, no pressure, right? I mean, there's been so many good wishes today. There's been, I think I can sign up for all of those wishes, and I hope they come true. Well, I would like to wish for an end of world hunger. And for myself, I would like a really nice Christmas dinner. I think those two go in line. So, but yeah.
Okay, that's good. So, yeah, well, I wanted to thank, of course, all the speakers and, of course, all the people who helped us do that. And, of course, from the Ministerium of so Transport and Digital, that's the new name. So thank you very much for the support. And of course, all the team that have been working with us all year, so Hugo and Nicolas and Pierre-Jérôme for the technical part. It's not always simple, but it worked very well. Thank you very much. And yeah, Odile and I, we want to thank you a lot, Per, for your contribution. As always, it's very nice, very friendly, and I think very constructive as well. So thank you very much, and thank you to all the viewers as well, obviously.
Thank you. It's been an honor.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, yes.